guys. So I'm back here with my friend Julie, and we always have the coolest discussions, and I always learn something new from her. And today I was getting on and I was telling her about how I feel these waves of energy all the time where I feel energetic and excited about life and showing up, and then I just crash and I just want to disappear from the planet and not do anything. And she's like, "Oh, well, let's look at your human design." And I have heard of human design. I have looked at it. I know probably 2% about it. But Julie actually knows about it. And so she is going to help me understand myself today. And I thought that would be helpful for somebody else to listen in to this discussion, and maybe it will draw you to want to learn about it. And I believe, Julie, you do readings like this for
Yeah.
people. So if they
hmm
wanted to set up an appointment with you and come learn about themselves, they could do that. The same thing we're going to do here.
Yeah. I love human design. I love astrology because these are snapshots of who we really are. And like personality tests are snapshots of how we're showing up in the world in that moment. Because personality, to use a phrase that was a title of Dr. Benjamin Hardy's book, personality is not permanent. I certainly have felt like I've had multiple different personalities in my life, and not from a disorder, but just from different experiences in my life and actually in my human design, I see why I felt differently in different parts of my life too. So, because of some specific things that are in my particular human design. But human design is a system that is based on astrology, the Kabbalah, the I Ching. It's a combination of a lot of different systems, and it's based on when you're born. So it's based on the energies of those systems when you were born. And what I think is so cool about that, and this is the way that I choose to look at it, and other people may choose to look at it differently, but the way I choose to look at it is that when I came here, when you came here, when each of us came here, we came here with a certain soul plan. And some people talk about contracts, but I prefer to call it a plan because I don't think we're held to any, contract necessarily. It's just we put a plan in place. These are the things we want to accomplish. These are the things that we want to do in this lifetime. And when we're born, we in that soul plan, we decided when we were going to be born with the help of our spirit team and those that helped us with this plan to be born at the time and the place that would give us the overlays of energy that we need to do the things that we planned in our soul.
That's so
you know
cool. I
yeah.
love that. Just to add something to that on a like spiritual level, a couple years ago, I was asking about our purpose in life and our soul, what we're here to do. And I felt like Spirit told me, because some people, they have a baby and the baby pops out, and then other people have days of labor. And I was like, isn't it interesting, there's so many different ways of a human coming into the earth? And they explained to me, well, that soul knows exactly what second it wants to come into the world, and that moment in time is their life path. And so it makes so much sense that this would describe that in some kind of way as our, like, I love how you said it's like this guiding trajectory of your soul's desire to complete, not a contract of like, because contract can be so negative. Like, if I don't complete this, then I've failed. But it's not about failure, it's about purpose and about discovery, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, and I just think to me there's just so much beauty in that. There's just so much incredible beauty in the universe, that things can be like we see that intricacy of design and pattern and in nature, And we can see that beauty of design and pattern in our own life as we see that, we were born at a certain place in a certain time, and in that space we took on the energies of the universe in that moment. And I know a lot of people think, oh, that's crazy, but talk to talk to anybody in the police department or the fire department about what happens on a full moon, and
Mm.
that gives you an opportunity to see to see the impact that the celestial bodies have on us.
100%. I am going to back that up. I worked in the mental health field all my life. Anytime it was the week of the full moon or the actual full moon, all of my clients were acting crazy. Like they had more crises at that time. There was more amplified energy. They were calling me more. They were needing more help. So I back that up completely.
Well, and I just want to talk about that for a minute because I think sometimes, and I see this in a lot of people that I work with, and when they talk about their, because I I've studied astrology and human design, and when I talk to people, sometimes they look at their own charts or they look at their own what they have going on in their charts, and they sometimes they look at it as this is negative, this is negative, this is negative. And that's not the way that I look at it. I look at it as all in divine timing and placement for us to have the experiences that we came to have. And we can look at that as negatives because there are some things that are more challenging than other things. But actually, when you look at somebody who has an astrology chart that doesn't have a lot of challenge, that can actually create a lot of complacency. So there's beauty in challenge. And so even looking at the places in our human design or astrology where we might see, oh well, that's a negative or this is a negative. No, that's all happening for our good. And even those times, and the reason I brought this up is even those times during the full moon when it appears that people are kind of going crazy, they're actually releasing.
Um,
So the energy of the moon, like we're what, 85% water. I don't even know what the numbers are. But we know that the moon affects the tides. So it would make sense that if the moon is affecting water, then it's affecting us. And it's not just the moon, it's just the moon is it's closest to us, so it's the most obvious to us. But all these planetary movements are actually affecting us. And I know there was a time in my life I would have said this is crazy, but studying it now, I'm like, it's not crazy, it's beautiful. It really is beautiful. And when we understand ourselves, and this is why we started, I said, do you want to talk about this today? Because I was showing you your chart and I was showing you some things and telling you some things, and you're like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense.
yeah.
And there's so much and you said something about, so good to know ourselves. And this is how we really get to know ourselves and how to work with the energies that we have. It's not that some people are set up for success and other people are set up for failure. No. And I think some people look at it that way, but that's not the case. Everyone is set up for success in different ways. So, getting to know ourselves and our strengths and our purposes and our experiences helps us to utilize the energies that we have in the ways that make most sense to us. Because I'm not going to show up in the same way that you do, Angie, and you're not going to show up in this world the same way that I do, and we're not meant to.
That makes so much sense to me, Julie. I just to add a little insight, I had a download a few days ago where I was thinking about my old life, my old personality, who I used to be when I was religious, and how if people would have talked to me about this stuff, I would have thought they were absolutely nuts. It was demonic, like all these negative things. And I was thinking even about like having spirit guides. And as I was thinking about it, I heard my guide say to me, "Why do you think that you have us? We're here because we want you to be successful. The universe wants you to be successful at your human experience. So we have everything set up for you to be successful. It's just you have to be in alignment with who you really are to find that path that you're supposed to be successful in. And as you're saying this, I'm thinking about how many of us are trying to fit into a box or into an identity of who we're not because we were told to be somebody that isn't in alignment with who we really are. And then when you discover, like I was saying, that the self-realization that you are helping me to like understand about myself, like, oh, that makes sense why this happened to me or why this experience with that person or whatever. And it's like instead of feeling bad or shameful about the experience, like you were saying, is providing opportunity for growth for me. Had I not had the experience, then I would be in the same place and complacent with that. So it makes so much sense to me that everything is truly set up for our benefit of succeeding at our human experience. It's just we have to find our alignment of who we are as an authentic being to be in that success. So that makes so much sense.
100%. 100%. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, let me show you your chart. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show Angie's chart, but I'm going to talk about human design in general, and then we'll look at some specifics, and then you can look at your own chart, and maybe some of it will make a little more sense as you think about like some of these things. So let me share the screen. We blocked out her um, birth information.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when you, I guess I didn't block out your age. Hopefully you're okay with everybody knowing your
I'm
age.
fine. I'm 44.
Um, but she is an emotional generator. And so this type is the most important thing that you will find on your chart. There's basically five types. There's the manifester, there's the generator, there's the manifesting generator, there's the projector, and there's the reflector. And these are five different types. 70% of the population is generator and or, I mean, not and or, but generator and manifesting generator. So the generator and the manifesting generator have very similar um, energies. So that they are generators are, and when I say generators, I'm talking about generators and manifesting generators. They are really the workforce. They are the people that have the energy to do the day-to-day work. They're the people that can show up 9 to 5 and get the work done. Okay. So, and that's the majority of the population are generators. So chances are, if you're listening to this, 70% of you are generators. And what that means is that you have sustainable energy, which is found in this sacral center. So this sacral center on someone who is a generator, the sacral center will be colored in. So we're going to talk about these 9 centers and what they mean in a minute, but there's different energetic fingerprints, I guess you would say, or different setups of these centers, and that creates the type. I'm a projector, which is about 20% of the population, and this center is not defined for me. So definition means that that's sustainable energy that's going to come from that center. And the sacral center is the workhorse of our human design. And I don't have that colored in my chart. That's not defined in my chart, which means that my energy is going to be more variable. It's going to be more up and down. And as a projector, I'm more of a guide and someone to hold the energetic template and to help the generators to use their energy in a good way, I guess is the best way I can describe it. And also, I'll just share with you too, this book, Understanding Human Design by Karen Curry Parker. This is kind of a great reference guide. I have several books on human design, but I actually studied with Karen Curry Parker. On the front of this book, it just says Karen Curry. Um, but it's a great guide if you're new to human design and you want to learn more about it. But you can look up a chart. You're going to find this emotional generator, or like I'm an emotional projector. This type is the most important piece to understand about your human design. For example, as a projector, when I learned that I don't have sustainable energy, but what happens is in the centers. Okay, so ask questions because I don't want to, Angie, you're the one that's going to be
Oh, this is great.
deciding if I'm losing you, ask a question. Like in my chart, this is white instead of colored in. Like she's got has one open center, and I have more than one, but this is open for me. So what this means is I am going to, when I'm with other people, when I'm collaborating with, for example, with Angie, I'm going to absorb that energy. These are centers that are undefined, are the ones where we're going to absorb the energy and we're going to expand the energy. So I actually, for many, many years, operated like a manifesting generator because there were a lot of generators in my life and manifesting generators in my life. And I was absorbing that energy and I was acting like the workhorse. And people would look at me and go, how do you get so much done? How do you, because I was absorbing that energy and amplifying it. And that actually wasn't healthy for me. So, this is why it's so valuable to know your human design because it really can help you to not only improve your understanding of your own talents and purpose and the things the tools that you have in your tool belt to do life. It can help you improve your health, your emotional health, in every aspect. It can be really, really super, super helpful. So I had to learn to rest and drain that energy and really find what energy was mine, and show up in the world a little differently. So this is really important. Like I said, if you learn nothing else, figure out if you're a generator, if you're a projector, if you're a reflector, if you're a manifester. This is going to be really important because each type has a strategy. So we're going to jump right down here to this line that says strategy. And right above it, it says inner authority, the solar plexus. This is the solar plexus center. This is the emotional solar plexus. So when your inner authority is the solar plexus, you are you're you make decisions from your energy, from your emotional center. So it's very important that so Angie is a generator with an emotional generator. So she's going to make decisions based on how she feels about things. Some people will make decisions, they'll have splenic authority. So it's going to be more of a gut feeling. So there's different types of authority, but I would say most people are an emotional authority, but it's going to show up a little bit differently depending on what type you are. So you'll see here her inner authority is solar plexus. So if you're an emotional inner authority, then it's really important that you check in with how you feel about a decision and give it some time because emotions can shift. And so if you're anything like me, you can get super excited about something and then the next day you go, wait a second, what was I thinking? This is not going to work, and so it's allowing a little bit of time depending on what type of emotional authority you have, allowing a little bit of time for that emotional wave to move through to make decisions. Because if it's not a yes all the way through, then it's not a yes. Has that shown up for you, Angie, at all? That emotional authority?
Absolutely, 100%. when I discovered, I haven't heard it in this much detail, but I did know I was supposed to follow my yeses and nos more accurately. And I started to notice that I was doing things I didn't want to do. And I was just feeling completely drained anytime I would force myself to show up in a way that I really, truly didn't want to show up, whether that's going to an event or, there's certain things that drain me. And so, listening to, and you're right, like there could be a party in 3 weeks that I'm really excited about today, and then as we get closer to it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't want to go, you know and then I used to just force myself to do something, and now I'm trying to listen and be like, okay, so something's telling me not to do it, and so I'm going to try to listen to that a little bit more. It doesn't mean I don't go ahead and do things that I probably should do, but I listen to it more often, even throughout the day. Like if there's something that feels more exciting for me to do, like, I don't know, do the dishes or ride my bike. These are two weird examples, but if I'm feeling more excited about like riding my bike in the moment, I'll tell myself, go ride my bike, and then I'll come home and do the dishes. That way it's almost like a release for me, like
Mhm.
a pent up energy. And then I'm able to accomplish more tasks that way. I don't know if that makes sense or.
It makes so much sense. And I think this is the beauty of understanding this is because what you said at the very beginning about your energy, is when we're using the correct authority, when we are showing up in our type and and plugged into our inner authority, then we're less likely to drain off energy because we're going to be doing those things that are correct for us with correct timing. And that is the challenge that so many of us have is that we are conditioned to do things in certain ways. We watch other people who are successful and we go, oh, well, this person did steps one, two, three. So therefore, I have to do steps one, two, and three in order to be successful. But that's not necessarily true because your energy type may be totally different and your strategy may be totally different than them. And so, really, really checking in using your inner authority is huge. And then using your strategy. So, as a generator, your strategy is to respond. So, in other words, there are energy types that are meant to like create out of thin air, I will say, but most have some level, like 70% of the population are generators. So 70% are going to have this strategy to respond. So responding means, and that doesn't mean that somebody has to come up to you and say, hey, Angie, what do you think about this? It's just when you are interacting with the world and you see a billboard and then you have this thought, oh, I have some thoughts about that. Like you're responding to what you're seeing in your environment. You're scrolling through Instagram and somebody posts something about some topic and you think, oh, I have some thoughts about that. I want to respond to that. So you're responding to what you're experiencing in the world, just like you have, Angie, because I think you have responded from your own personal experiences and from the watching the experiences of others. You've responded to becoming a healer and doing that work to help people to move forward. And yeah, and there were some really interesting things we're going to talk about in a minute that makes so much sense. Like as we were kind of talking about this before we recorded, Angie kept going, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense." So, yeah, so I think what as we were talking about this idea of responding as that being a strategy, what were some of the ahas that you had earlier when we were talking about it?
I was just thinking about, there's times that I force myself to do something because of how it will make me look. Like it's
Mm.
almost like I am not a good person if I don't respond to this, or I'm not like I perceive who I am based on the how other people would perceive me instead of just trusting myself and not making up a story in my head about how they're perceiving me and just being okay with me and my and myself. And I don't know if this goes with it. But as you were talking, and as I'm learning about the solar plexus, which is our stomach area, it's like between our lower stomach and in our heart chakra. Um, I've had stomach issues my whole life.
Mhm.
And I've almost, when, as you were saying that, I almost wonder because I notice when I'm feeling really good, my stomach feels good. When I'm doing things I enjoy, it's like it just works out. Like I don't feel like this achy, weird feeling. But when I'm like kind of in a flow, it's like everything else flows for me. And so, like, responding even to like the pressure of eating a certain way or responding to the way, we're taught to look in the world, like these different things, and just allowing myself to be me without having to show up when it's not really who I am, kind of a thing.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes makes a lot of sense.
yeah. So I mean, gosh, there's so many things I could think of. Here's another thing that's as I'm like responding to this, I'm noticing in myself right now, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed about
Yeah.
responding because there's so many things going through my mind about what I could respond to that I don't know what to respond to. Is
Yeah.
that normal?
Yeah, and so, well, and I think anytime we're looking at something new, and that's why I'm like trying to highlight specific things, because if you just look at this whole chart, it just looks like garbly goop, like it, and no one can look at this whole chart and understand it the first time you look at it, and that's okay. That's why I'm trying to point out these couple of things that are most important to understand. It again, the type, and then what goes along with the type is the inner authority. So figuring out what your inner authority is. So your emotional generator, which is why your inner authority is the solar plexus, and the strategy is to respond with emotional clarity. So this is where, when you're talking about like stomach issues, it's and I love that you made that correlation between when you're feeling good about things, your stomach doesn't hurt. And when you're not, it does. And you said it a little differently than that, but that's my simplified version of it because you are meant to respond with emotional clarity. So it is all about trusting your emotional clarity. It is all about listening to your stomach, listening to your solar plexus, and that's why we have this theme here of satisfaction and frustration, because the theme of the generator can be frustration. You will often feel frustration a lot of times just before. So let's put this in order. So you have a decision to make. If you make that decision based on your strategy, which means you're responding with emotional clarity, as you're moving through, if you've made the decision from that place, so that's the first step. Okay. If you made the decision from that place, and then as you're, let's say you decided to take on a project. Like I had somebody call me today about, something that they would like for me to, a project that they would like for me to be involved in. And it's something that I'm interested in. So I check in with myself and I say, yes, this is aligned with me. This is what I want to do. But let's say that as you're working on a project that you have said yes to and you felt emotionally aligned to, everything feels like correct timing, correct place, so forth. As you're bringing that into, because that's part of what the generator does, the generator brings into form.
Hmm.
They're creating, they're bringing into form. So they're responding and bringing something into form with their response. In the process of that, there may be frustration that comes up. And so the key is to not quit when you feel frustrated.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you listen in. Um, so I'm just going to share a couple of things from this book that I was just sharing with you, Understanding Human Design. The generator has a stair step learning curve, and frustration is a natural part of the process. So you're in the learning curve. You're learning something new. You're responding in a different way. You're doing something different than you've done before. Generators are designed to be masters. So it's in the mastery, it's in the process of mastering that you frustration may come up. When the generator has plateaued and feels frustrated, it means they are getting clear about what they want, and an opportunity to go to the next level will show up soon.
Okay, so I want to see if this is what you're talking about. Because I'm thinking about several years ago, as everybody might or might not know that's watching this, I do spiritual healing work. I'm basically a spiritual mentor coach. And when I first started the journey, you're supposed to hire a coach to help you learn how to be a coach. That, there's all that stuff. So if you've been around the coaching world, you've heard that. But I was looking for people to help me start this path and just journey towards where I knew inwardly I was supposed to go. And then I would get with somebody and they would start telling me, this is what you do, this is how you do it, this, and like providing all these steps for me. And I would attempt to do that, but it felt so inauthentic. It felt like I was forcing myself to do something that I didn't like it. And I became more and more and more and more frustrated because I was like, this isn't working for me. I'm doing what you're telling me to do. I don't like doing it. It doesn't feel comfortable, but I'm going to do it because that's what you say will guide me towards the success I want. And then it was like one day I just had this idea of like, why don't I just do what feels good? Instead of trying to force myself to not to do all this stuff the way they think it will work because it worked for them. And it's not that I didn't learn anything from it. It almost provided me an opportunity to push me into something more authentic and to trust myself more in what I really did want to do instead of trying to recreate something that somebody else was doing. And so I ended up just pulling back completely and rebuilding from the education and understanding I did gain from that, but in a way that felt good for me. Like I didn't
Mm.
feel like I was trying to force something. It felt like it just like organically would grow on its own if I just was consistent and showed up. Not that there wasn't frustration and hard times in all of it, but I didn't feel like I was trying to fit into this box of what somebody else was telling me would get me to success. And each time I would try to do that, I became more and more and more frustrated. And then I didn't want to do it. I didn't want
Yeah.
to show up. So I wonder if what you're saying is that frustration allowed me to find my alignment in taking steps forward. Not that I didn't learn from it, not that I didn't gain anything from it. It just wasn't the exact path for me. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. It's that old phrase, fitting a square peg into a round hole thing, right? And that's what happens a lot of times when we look to gurus to tell us exactly how to set up our business or set up our programs or raise our kids or whatever the thing is, right? We look to gurus and they come from this standpoint of like, this is the way to do it. And we have to, instead of hearing this is the way to do it, we have to hear this is the way that I'm doing it that's working for me and has been successful for other people. But it may be that for you, it's going to work a little differently. So I think about some of the things that, some of the things that I've done in my life. And I've gone to people, experts, and I've learned from them. And I look at the way they do it and I say, okay, what what of this can I bring into my own experience? What is going to work for me? So there are certain things where Like if I don't turn the on switch on my computer, it's not going to work. So there's certain things that have to happen. There's certain I've got to have the correct software on here, or I have to whatever. But the way that I use my computer may be totally different than the next person. And the way that let's just use because we both have businesses. I don't even like using the word businesses. I just because I feel like it's more of just like I don't even know what word to use, but but it's our offering to the world. This is what we do. And the way that I show up in my business is going to be different than the way that you show up in your business, and it's meant to be that way. So we can both learn from the same person that's maybe teaching marketing, for example, like how to show up online to get your message out there. But then for you, it works too. And I'm going to be making things up. For you, it works for you to get up first thing in the morning and to, log on right away. And every day I'm again making this stuff up. Every day at 8 o'clock, you post this thing, and everybody knows exactly when you're going to post and what that's going to look like in XYZ. And then for me, it may look more like, okay, I'm using the information that I've received to make my content appealing or to because I don't want to be showing up with stuff that's like it doesn't appeal to people, right? So I may use that the same strategies, but I may be showing up like one day I show up at noon and the next day I show up at 9 and I have like a different flow to the way that I work. We see this throughout life. We see people showing up differently throughout life. And there's a tendency in our conditioning to think this is the right way to show up and this is the wrong way to show up. No, this is the correct way for me to show up. This is the correct way for you to show up. And a lot of times we aren't showing up in the way that feels correct for ourselves because of the conditioning of how other people are doing it. And we may be looking at somebody with totally different life plan, and we're trying to walk in their footsteps because they've been successful, but that's not our life plan.
That's so true, Julie. And I know that we're probably gonna have to break this up into two different times, but as you're saying that, I'm thinking about I have a lot of clients that are frustrated with their where they're at in life, with their position at their work. They don't want to be in this certain job. They want to be doing what they want to do. Like they feel this calling to do something else, but they don't know how to get there, but they're in this setting and they have to show up in a certain way because that's what's required for them. And I know for myself, I felt like that when I was still working in a full-time job. Like I I didn't like the pressure of having to perform in a certain way when it didn't feel authentic and it didn't go with the flow of who I am in my design. And so I'm curious at some point if that could be a discussion where we're able to help people understand how do you show up as your authentic self in settings that aren't set up for you in your authentic self.
Well, I think the first thing is recognizing because we can feel like, oh, maybe it's off or something, but if we don't understand our own human design, we may not know exactly what it is we do need. That was my case because I was showing up in the world as a manifesting generator, and I was just go 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 and doing everything and making everything happen and using all this energy and completely depleting myself. And I had no idea what was wrong and I didn't know how to correct it. So learning this helped me to first align with who am I? Because first I had to mentally and emotionally align with who I am before I could start to align my life with that.
Yes, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So you can be in a work situation that feels uncomfortable and feel like this isn't aligned. But how how great would it be to know, like, how am, what is my design? Am I a generator? Am I a 9 to 5 worker? Am I someone who can show up, for long hours every day and get the work done? Then that's one thing to understand. And then as you look at your human design, then you can start to align yourself with what your specific, because there's so much more to this, and we've just kind of scratched the surface, but it's the most important piece is to know your type. And then as you look at the different aspects of your human design, then you can start to go, oh, okay. And you'll start to notice in your day-to-day life how these things show up. And then you're able to start to shift a little bit with the way that you're showing up in your world. And within the construct of what your life currently looks like. So it's not about like, okay, I learned this about my human design. So tomorrow I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go do this thing over here because that's more aligned with me. No, that's not what we're talking about. It's about it being in that space where you start to really begin to integrate who you really are, like really connect to who you really are at your core. And as you connect to who you really are, then the life that you create will more and more over time align with who you really are. That's what I found in my own experience.
I agree. And I love that. I love how you explain that because it aligns with everything else that we work on, like with manifestation and energetic shifts and consciousness and rising and all that. Like if the your inward is in alignment, your outward's not going to be in alignment. So it all starts within. It starts with self-realization. It starts with knowing thyself.
Yeah.
And then when you know thyself, you can know how to manifest and create a different world around you.
Yeah, for example, one of the things I learned when I started learning about my own human design a few years ago was that a lot of my energy is about bringing in a lot of information and kind of recreating it in a way that can help people understand things in a different way. And that was so empowering for me to learn that because I had been doing that, but I didn't understand, first of all, that that's what I was doing. And second of all, I didn't understand that that was a significant part of who I am. It wasn't just by accident that I was doing that. So you get, when you start to learn about it and more, you find areas, this was my experience. I found areas where I was not aligned with it, where it was going to be to my benefit to align with it. And I found areas where I was like, oh, this is not by accident. This is actually like it's so empowering to go, yes, this is what you're meant to do. I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is why I feel drawn to do that. And we suffer with so much, well, at least I do, with so much imposter syndrome. But then when you see something and you go, oh, well, this is how I'm meant to show up in the world, then it empowers you to actually show up that way and kind of drop some of that disempowering feeling of, that can't be right. Like, who am I to say that? Who am I to show up that way? And so there's a lot of value in learning about ourselves. Like we were talking earlier, and we didn't get into this just now, but we were talking about the profile, and you're a 5'2", and that line has some hiding in it. And that's a part of who you are at a core level. And so understanding that there's going to be periods of your life and and to create structure around, I need downtime and I need
Mhm.
time when I'm not in front of everybody, and I need time when I can be by myself and I can hide in my cave or what, however you want to say that, that's important to you, not only from a standpoint of it feels important, but from a standpoint of, no, this is vital to who I am. And this actually allows me to show up in the world in a more powerful way, then instead of the periods where you feel like, oh, I just need to retreat, instead of, because I have that in my human design too, instead of feeling like when I retreat, that's bad, I'm running away, blah, 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 it becomes empowering. No, this is who I am. And when I do this, this helps me to show up in an even more powerful way when I come back into the world.
Yeah, that's so true. Since I've learned that particular thing, it has given me so much grace and compassion for myself when I'm having those hermit modes where I would just want to disappear from the world. Because I used to feel guilty and like, what's wrong with me? Am I depressed? Like, why do I want to like disappear from the world for 2 days and then emerge, in a different person, it feels like. But it makes so much sense. As you're talking, what popped in my head, and I totally forgot. I've been like this my whole life. Like I would hear stories about me being a little kid and how I would just disappear sometimes. And I'd be in my room taking a nap, or I would be like by myself. Like everybody else would be like gathering together at a social gathering and then be like, "Where'd Angie go?" I was in my room, like by myself, recharging. And so it's been something I've done my whole life. I just unknowingly, and I'm sure as a child, I didn't have the guilt and shame about disappearing like I do now. And
Right.
so I love that there's permission to be in that energy and then knowing why you're doing it. And then even helping other people around you know this isn't about you, it's about me showing up as my best self
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things that happened when I learned about all this, I'm like, oh my gosh, there were so many things of like all the puzzle pieces started to click, 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 because there would be my husband is as a generator, so he has that sustained work energy, and without getting into the weeds, I have a lot of energy in my chart too, but not in that way, and so a lot of times we would travel and we'd get home and I would get home and I'd be completely done. Like I have to lay down. I have to now I understand that for me and my energy type, I need to get flat and drain energy because I'm absorbing a lot of that energy as I'm moving through the world. So that's important to me. It's a part of the way that so as a generator, you are meant to use your energy every day. Like bike riding is perfect because it's like you need that energy um use to be
Yeah.
drained at the end of the day. But that's not the way mine works. So a generator will go, 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 and they'll burn all the energy throughout the day, and then they hit the pillow and they go to sleep you know, sometimes, not always, but that's kind of the way that they're designed. Whereas a projector, like I'll go, but I'm absorbing energy and then I hit a wall and then I have to lay flat and I have to lay flat. I mean, I have to go to bed before I plan on going to sleep
Yeah.
because I've got to drain all that energy out and then I'm able to relax and sleep. So it's a different style. But I used to look at my husband who would come home from this trip and he'd immediately put the suitcases up on the bed and start unpacking and starting a load of laundry. And I'm like, I can't do anything. I'm done. I was completely exhausted. And I would feel guilty that I wasn't continuing to move. But no, like I needed downtime.
Yeah.
So we show up differently in the world and when we understand that. And even though my husband doesn't understand any of this, I do. So it gives me permission to show up in the world the way that I need to show up in the world
Yeah.
without feeling bad that I'm different.
Yeah. So good. So good. So much self-permission. This is
Yeah.
so good. It's 222 here. I don't know if
I
it's
know it is here too. I just saw
so
that.
so good. So
We
good.
love our angel numbers.
Yes. So, yeah, I want to keep talking about this, but I know this is probably overwhelming for everybody to hear. And so I wonder if we could continue this at another time.
Sure.
I mean, we can even continue using me as an example because I'm sure I got all kinds of them. But again, you guys, if you're listening to this, reach out to Julie. Whatever platform you see this on, I'm sure there'll be a link to contact her and do a reading. Let her tell you what your human design is and see if that will help you start to align with what feels comfortable for you and what doesn't, all that stuff that we've been talking about today. It's helping me for sure.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. So, all right. Any last words, Julie?
I think that's all. I think it's just there's just so much beauty in knowing ourselves.
Yes, there is. Okay. Well, until we see you all again, we wish you a great day.